Welcome to The Big Break Show, a podcast where we discuss short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, life, mindset, and everything in between. Here are your hosts, Rafa Loza and Jesse Vasquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode on this week's The Big Break Show. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
Not much, dude.
What do you think I'm going to ask you right now, Rafa?
What episode are we on?
37. Can you believe that? You guys, we're at episode 37, and today is a fun episode because we have Rafa's realtor and a friend of ours who is in the ADU space, which I'm extremely excited about because it's a huge way to add value to your property. And you guys, you know what? I drop a bunch of stats in here, and so does Stephanie. And today was a fun episode, man. I just felt like we were shooting the breeze.
Yeah, it was really like laid back, especially because we're friends. We all know each other. We talked a lot all the time. I talk to her quite often. I mean, I was talking to her about a property like right before we jumped on here. So it's exciting because she talks a lot about ADUs. She's big in the ADU space. She's niched down into ADUs really hard. So she tells people how to find the right property if they want to supplement income with an ADU, or they want to lower their house payment, or just add more money to their pool of income as well. So I'm really excited for everybody to listen to this. Hopefully you guys get some value, and give her a follow and go listen to her podcast because she brings in some really good people in the ADU space as well.
Definitely. I agree with you, man. Yeah. Thank you, Rafa. That was great to have her on here. And also, you guys, please like and share this. If you want to learn about the ADU space, listen to this one.
So, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show today. We really appreciate it. I know we've rescheduled like 50 million times, and we finally get to have you on and talk about everything that you do. I want to get into ADUs and all the stuff that you're working in with real estate as well. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, a little bit of your backstory, and how you got into investing in real estate and all the good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm honored to be here. Honestly, I didn't think we were actually going to come through with it because we rescheduled so many times. But I know you guys have a lot of dope people on the show, so I appreciate you guys even giving me the time of day to be here. I don't really do anything special other than have a consistency of my business model throughout these years that I've just stayed stuck with, for the last couple of years. And a little backstory on me. Before I was in real estate, I actually worked in the medical field. I worked for a pediatric ophthalmologist and did medical billing and insurance eligibility. And so a lot of the systems and processes that I learned in the medical field, I kind of implemented in real estate when I started, in real estate. And how I got started in real estate was through, honestly, I just looked up a job on Craigslist. I was kind of over the whole medical billing thing. And just the medical field, I wanted something different. I felt like I was going to be just capped out as to what I could do in the medical field. And I decided to look for a job in real estate. And I started off as a receptionist at a Century 21 office in South Bay. So for those of you guys who don't know where that's at, it's kind of like LAX area, all down the coast of that South Bay. And I kind of worked my way up, started working as a marketing director. So I was recruiting, and doing all of the marketing for all the new realtors coming in, and eventually became the EA, which is an executive assistant for the broker's daughter. And I was doing REOs and BPOs at the time, which today's market kind of brings me back to that. That was back in 2011 when I started doing that. And, I got married in 2012 and moved to Palm Springs. And in Palm Springs, I managed over 200 properties in different HOAs from, Coachella all the way up to 29 Palms, Yucca Valley, Joshua Tree. And also did HOA management, worked for other teams and started building out real estate teams. And then in 2017, I got divorced. I moved back to Long Beach and I started working for my brother's team. So my brother has a team and my sister-in-law is a realtor, my cousin's a realtor, and they work together on a team. I was strictly a buyer's agent when I was working for my brother, and we were closing about 60 to 75 deals a year, just him and I in production with our business model that we were following through with, which was part of the Tom Ferry coaching. That's who we were following at the time. And maybe like 2-3 years into it, I decided to, 2 years ago, back in 2020, when COVID happened, I decided to build my own team. And at that time is when I decided to also niche down into ADUs, because I was a buyer's agent working with so many investors and buyers. Everybody kept asking me, well, what can I do with this garage? Kind of a lot of the questions that you have, Rafa, right? Like, what can I do with this backyard? What can I do with this garage? And I found myself not knowing anything. Like, I had zero knowledge about development, permitting process, plans, designs, construction. The way that us realtors are taught, and I know this because I've done it, I've built out teams and trained other realtors, we're wired to sell properties differently and look at properties very different. And so I didn't have that knowledge about zoning, a lot of things, development, the financing, the construction side of things, and I didn't have a network. So at that point in time was when I decided to build out a network and started doing it thanks to Clubhouse, thanks to doing some of these meetups, and now I pretty much have niched down into the whole ADU movement. And I have a full network now, and now my goal is to create networks in different states that are ADU specific. And not only ADU, because ADU is kind of just a starter conversation, but we're also going to be, looking at SB9, SB10, and just, development as a whole, and teaching other realtors how to dissect these properties and actually analyze deals for our clients. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you give a lot there.
I know I went over a lot.
No, it's
That was
cool.
a lot.
So first of all, what does a buyer agent specifically do for those of the people that don't know out there? Because when I first started talking to you, I had no idea.
Yeah, so a buyer's agent, really their main job is to look for properties that are within the client's budget, within their ideal situation, and write up offers and show them property and negotiate deals. Everything else should be delegated. In a structured, well-structured team, you've got your team leader, you've got a listing agent, you have a buyer's agent, and you have some sort of VAs handling the back end stuff, and transaction coordinators handling all of the paperwork. Like you met Sarah and Rachel, they handled all the documents during our escrow period. And so my job was really just to go on appointments and lead gen and follow up, and that's the main purpose of a buyer's agent's role. Now with my team, I decided to do, because I've managed other teams before and I'm very familiar with splits and team structure, I decided to do more of a hybrid model for my team. So what that hybrid model looks like is I kind of follow the same blueprint from a traditional team model, but I also teach them branding, so they build out their own database, so that if they ever want to leave the team, they walk away with the database, and they walk away knowing both the buyer side and the listing side. So they understand how to look for buying properties and buying strategies, and then also on the list side, how to list properties. Because, if you're a buyer's agent, you're only working with buyers, so you don't get exposure to working with sellers, which is where the real magic happens. Because if you do your numbers right, for every listing that you get, you should get 2 to 4 buyers. So if you focus more on the listing side, the buyers will come, right? You have more control over the market as well.
Steph, how long have you been an agent?
6 years now.
6 years. Okay, so you passed the 5-year mark. So just everybody listening right now, most agents that start as real estate agents, only 13% actually go over 5 years. So Steph, welcome to the 13% club. And I feel right now what you're doing is, I'm not an agent, obviously. I've been in sales and marketing forever, but if you're doing something different, like what you're doing is you're niching things down, like that's the way to separate yourself. There's a billion agents out there. Like literally they're freaking falling out of cracks in the sidewalk. There's so many agents. And I think what you're doing is super cool. And maybe that's some suggestions you could pass along here as we continue to talk about agents getting into the market.
100%. You're right about that. I have about 6 agents in my family alone, right? I mentioned my brother, my sister-in-law, my cousin, her boyfriend and they're killing it. But the thing is, you need to really, like, if you're a new agent, in order for you to go over that 5-year mark, you're going to have to start off with the team, because that's where you get all of your experience. And real estate is not easy. I mean, a lot of realtors, especially during COVID, there were so many realtors that came into the picture. I think it was like close to 1.6 or something like that is what I read. And obviously out of the 1.6, more than 50% are working about 10 hours a week and making maybe $10,000, a year. It's ridiculous, like how very little money they make. But in order for you to scale in this business, it's like everything else. You need to have knowledge as far as marketing goes. You need to have a good marketing strategy, and you need to have a good business model, systems and processes, just like everything else. But most people in this business don't come with that background. So it's very hard for them to scale up or even know where to get started. And I'm seeing it with the realtors that I have on my team, because a lot of them are newer, and there's just no way that you can excel, without having the right resources or having a structured team, for sure. If you try to do it all on your own, it's difficult. And I've been there, because I went from a 9 to 5 to a solo agent and then went on to teams. But I think what helped me was I was training the agents prior, and I was doing the marketing prior. So everything that I've learned from all my other previous jobs on working for other realtors, I've now kind of tweaked this model and came up with this model that works for me, to be honest. And niching down, if somebody would have told me when I first started to niche down, that would have probably set me up in a quicker or shorter time frame, But now that's what I teach. It's like niche down, because there's so many of us. How do you actually stand out? And so for me, it's not only, I'm taking it a step further. I'm not just helping you with acquisitions and, investments and exit strategies, but I'm also helping you analyze the deal and walking you through the whole development. Because the thing is, inventory is tight right now, right? So we're going to have to live denser, especially here in LA. We just have to. Like, it is reality. And in order for you to live denser and source out opportunity, you need to understand zoning, you need to understand development, you need to understand way more than just reading the bedroom, bathroom, and square footage count and days on market,
I want you to talk about that a little bit more in detail, because like people that are listening to this, like if they're trying to buy a piece of property and they don't understand like why it's too expensive or if it's right for them, I want you to talk about exactly what to look for in terms of if this property is right for an ADU. But before we get into that, when you say you niche down into ADUs, like how does that look like for you as an agent when you're niching down on a specific thing like that, right? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like the question that I'm asking, how does it look for you to niche down for ADUs only? Like, what is it that you look for specifically to only be focused around that type of property for ADUs?
I mean, it's not so much about the property. It's also about the avatar that you've created, right? So whichever avatar you have, my avatar, I just simply added another layer to it, which is this avatar should also be interested in ADUs, and some sort of ADU development deal. Or that's part of their like investment strategy, is to build or convert or repurpose space. And what I'm really looking to transition to this year, because now that I have the team kind of focusing on the whole residential side of things, I want to focus on the multifamily, because I see the opportunity. As I started analyzing deals in the residential space, right? You look at a property with a detached garage and let's say a 5,000 plus lot size, that seems like a pretty good deal, especially if it's a corner lot with alley access. That tells me, if there's a detached garage that's closer to the alley, then there's less trenching that needs to get done. So then that's cheaper, like that's some cost that you'll avoid. Also utility access, power poles, depending on where the power pole is structured. Because if you have to reposition that pole, then that takes obviously more time, and then it's also more expensive. If you're looking to build new construction, you also want to take into consideration solar panels. Like I have a presentation and a bullet point of pros and cons and things that I've seen, because I've been to so many ADU consultations by following and working with different contractors, which also gave me the kind of the eye as to see how people work. And the contractors are just like realtors. Many of them do not have systems and operations on the back end, and you can quickly tell who does and who doesn't. And so I vouch, for the people that do, and I've seen their work, and those are the people that I vetted, highly vetted, because that was another one of the reasons why I got into the ADU space. Is a lot of people don't say what they're gonna do, and they do some pretty shitty work. And I've heard horror stories. And yeah, I mean, I take pride in the fact that the people that I can vouch for, I've vetted, highly vetted. So I think most importantly, like aside from it being a goal that you want to build or convert, make sure that you really create a team of people that you want to work with. And creating these meetups has been gold for me, because you create these meetups to connect and collaborate with people, but you're also building a team. I'm working with some investors that I've met from these meetups in the multifamily space, where then now I can be an equity holder on the deal as well. And there's just much more opportunity. And all we're doing is bringing awareness to these multifamily investors. Like, for example, I'm working on 3 different lists right now for, I told you, Santa Ana, Long Beach, and LA City, because these three cities have a pretty streamlined process when it comes to ADUs. And again, these are things that no other realtor is doing. Like most realtors are probably just scouting on the MLS. I'm actually trying to get off market deals. And how do we do that? And by targeting specific people that are most likely to want to sell or do a 1031 exchange. So back to the counties, Santa Ana, LA City, and Long Beach have a pretty streamlined process when it comes to ADUs. So I'm targeting investors who own 3 to 12 units with the potential to build or convert an ADU. And this can be 2, 3, 4, 5 ADUs, right? Whereas when I first started in the residential space, I was just simply having a conversation about converting your garage. Now I'm going for principals, investors, and brokers that want to build 25 ADUs to their 100 unit complex. That's the new strategy.
Steph, I got a question for you. And that was a lot of information too, and I'm going to kind of dive into that in a sec. When you switch from dealing with just your standard, couple that wants to buy a property to investors, is there a huge shift there? Because I've dealt with agents before, and they're just like, "Oh, I don't deal with investors. Let me pass you to somebody that does." Because it's a whole set of mindset, right? When it comes along to
Oh
dealing
yeah,
with investors.
100%. Way different. And I think the reason why they won't take on working with investors, a lot of the realtors, is the lack of skill set, because you have to transition the terminology and you also have to speak differently. It's just a different language. Investors are very numbers oriented. The residential side is very emotion oriented. So I'm just like over the emotional part of it. And so for me, it's been exciting to just learn the terminology, and you just have to speak differently to investors, and that's by numbers. And again, the ADU strategy is awesome because I always, 9 times out of 10, when I run these numbers for them and they see it on their pro forma, it just makes sense, to add more doors.
Yeah, and just a quick stat on that. The last I looked, I wrote a couple notes. Just adding an ADU to your property can add 30% value. You might have better stats than that, and also you get 82% ROI on adding an ADU on your land. Am I right on that? That's the stats that I had looked up.
Yep. You're pretty spot on. Yep.
So, I mean, if you just think about that on an investor side of things, like if you're to buy something, you're getting 82% of that cash back from just that investment that you had. And not only that, but if that property is worth, just say $1 million and you add, an ADU on the back, even a granny flat, that's 30% you're adding to your property. You're 1.3 now instead of 1 million.
Minimum. Yeah. Minimum 30%. Obviously, location and all that matters. But I mean, that's why, building a network is so important. And I think for me, what's given me the confidence to talk to these investors is the team that I've set up. Like Andrew's part of my team. He's one of the best developers here in LA who's implementing that strategy. So if I ever have any questions about ADUs, I just simply send him a text. Another advice too would be for the multifamily investors. If you're looking at a lot size of, just as an example, in LA, for example, you can build up to 800 square feet the city of LA. Let's say the lot size is 5,000. Divide that by 800, and that'll give you the unit count. That'll tell you how many units you can build, right? Of course, you have to look at zoning and density, but let's say you divide that by 800, that's 6 units. And so when you're looking at land and development opportunities, that's another value add tip there that I learned from Andrew. And, just having the right resources. I'm at Cameron's office right now recording this podcast, and I have my own office, but I just decided to come here today. But Cameron is doing a lot of ADU projects. He has about 17 or 20 right now in Long Beach and Santa Ana and LA. And so I get a lot of my data from him as well. And I think one of the stats we went over was 70% of the garage conversions here in LA, surprisingly, are for the elderly community. So aside from cash flow and passive income and appreciation and equity, all that's awesome. We also can touch on the affordability side of things. And there's a program called the ADU Accelerator Program, which if you go to their website, they'll tell you how much they pay out for let's say a studio, or what you would consider a junior ADU, to a 1-bedroom, to a 2-bedroom, to a 3-bedroom. And they pay pretty well, for these ADUs, as long as they're permitted. you can apply for that program. And, it's for the elderly community, which is dope. So
Yeah, not only that, you're talking about adding that ADU for family. The Hispanic population today I'm a stats guy today. 4.8 million in Los Angeles, and how many of our family like lives with us? Like that's just part of how our culture is, right? So I can
right.
guarantee a lot of the ADUs that are built for the mother-in-law or the father-in-law or something like that. Then eventually, that's the sale price. Is the sale, they end up selling that property, and there's already an attached ADU, but do you see that a lot, or is that something that you're kind of seeing often, or is it different?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, 70% of the garage conversions, which a lot of the garage conversions here are ADUs. You'll see a combination of garage conversions and ADU ground ups, and junior ADUs. And yeah, I think most of them are for the elderly or for that, the older son or the older daughter coming back from college that wants to move in. Or maybe the parents want to customize their own ADU and live in the garage and rent out the front unit, but that seems to be the common theme here. Yeah, in LA for sure. Yeah, good stats though.
I know Jesse. All of a sudden, he's like, Jesse, what you have like Investopedia up right now, bro, or what?
No,
Dude,
I know
Jesse
exactly.
always has all the stats.
I know today's like specifically like I was like, bro, like you just keep these on the back of your head or what? Like,
I love it though. Keep it coming. Well, look, I'll give you another stat
let's
that
hear
this
it.
one was actually published by the White House. The White House had a webinar dedicated to ADUs, and between 2018 and 2020, there have been over 25,000 ADUs built, 34,000 in the permitting process. So
Yeah.
that's
so
insane.
if they want us to build ADUs to house more people, why do they make it such a pain in the ass to do so?
Because you're dealing with the cities. I mean, some cities don't even have an ADU application. So you really have to know your stuff before you go to the city and start talking to them, which is why, I try to look for those opportunities like LA, Long Beach, and Santa Ana have a pretty streamlined process. I think the city of Long Beach even has a permit for junior ADUs that you can get approved within 30 days, you know? So it's just about knowing what new municipalities actually are not giving as much pushback. And quite frankly, a lot of people, I mean, you guys saw like the Joshua Tree announcement with the whole Airbnb stuff. Like they're pulling back on some of those applications because they're short staffed, So I think that's just a common theme in some of these municipalities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But aside from the permits, I think also one thing I wanted to touch on was just how expensive it's gotten for on the residential side of things, which is why I wanted to transition into multifamily. One of the things that I see people struggling with on the residential side is some of your financing options are a cash out refi or a HELOC loan, but rates are like creeping up to 6% right now. So that's just like it doesn't make sense sometimes, to finance that project if you don't have enough equity in there. And then the cost of construction has just gone up as well. So I think looking at it from many different angles, sometimes it's difficult, but again, that's why it matters who you work with, because there's always solutions to everything. It's just a matter of how you approach the deal.
Yeah. I was gonna ask.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off.
you're fine. I appreciate it. I was gonna ask you what specifically the difference was between residential and multifamily, because like what do you build? Like basically, you're just adding on a multifamily, you're just adding more units to it, right? They're just calling them ADUs. Is that what that is?
Yeah, they're just calling them ADUs for now.
Yeah. And what do they do? Like they just build on top? Like they just add on top of it, or you have to have like extra land on the
No,
side?
so first thing to make note of is that in the residential space, anything 1 to 4 units, you can build a junior ADU, which is anything under 500 square feet. You can build a detached ADU, a regular ADU, or like a basement conversion or a garage conversion. On the multifamily side, which is anything 2 to 4 units, 5 to 10 units, 10 to 20 units, 20 to 50 units, there's a 25% density rule on the multifamily side. So what that means is, let's say you have a 100 unit complex, if the density applies and if you're within the parking, requirements, and you take into consideration neighborhood parking and amenities, loss of amenities and all that, then you can technically build up to 25 ADUs to that 100 unit complex. And it can be a combination of building up or converting some of the space that you want to repurpose, which could be a gym, it can be a storage, it can be garages, like For example, on a fourplex, right, sometimes that comes with 4-car garage. You can most likely convert 2 of those 4-car garages into an ADU, you know. And obviously, you've got to take into consideration, like I said, loss of amenities, no parking. But the cool thing is that both on residential and multifamily, there is no parking requirement as long as there's transit within half a mile, which that's anywhere, especially here in LA and OC, right? There's a bus stop anywhere within half a mile. So you can most likely build there. Yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful strategy. So when I saw that, then I started saying, you know what, let me transition into multifamily. And that's how a lot of these ADU meetups came into play. I started off with the residential side, just explaining it to people at a very basic level. When I teach it to other realtors, it's at a very basic level. But then transitioning into multifamily and understanding how to present the deal to investors, that's been my biggest growing pain this year, and leadership for the team for sure.
Got it, Steph. I have the reason why I'm asking, and I have so many stats on this, is because I'm really interested.
Another
in
one,
ADUs.
another stat.
No more stats. I'm just super interested in ADUs. Like I've always been, and I really never really had a chance to put my thoughts behind it. And like I think one of the best strategies starting off, like if you're a single person or even coupled or whatnot, get a property that has an ADU, have that ADU as a cash flowing property, whether it's Airbnb, midterm, whatever the hell you want to do, and then you're literally paying for you to live for free, or essentially paying for $300-400 a month.
Well, since Jesse's a stats guy, I'll throw some numbers. Let's say you buy a house at $750,000, which is average sales price for here for LA and Orange County. $750,000. Your mortgage payment's most likely going to be $3,400, and everybody's ideal budget is $2,800. Every single person that you talk to, if they're a first-time home buyer, if it's a young couple who's looking to buy, what's your ideal budget? They're going to tell you $2,500 or $3,000, right? And I tell people, well, if you're looking to tap into today's market, that's going to be very difficult. But what we can do is analyze the deal differently. You buy a property at $750,000, your average payment will probably be $3,400. But let's say you convert, you intentionally buy a property with a detached garage. You rent out the garage for $1,500, and I'm just like lowballing it, right? $1,500. That helps you offset your $3,400 payment. Now you're within that budget of your $2,800 that you're looking to pay, and obviously like people like you guys who are actually implementing the STR and MTR model, then, it's just icing on the cake at that point. But it's a great way for you to tap into today's market if you analyze the property that way. Like you have to just look at the property differently. And that's the cool thing, is that you take a first-time buyer who's thinking of buying their first property, and you take them from a first-time home buyer mindset to an investor mindset. And now they're not as scared to pull the trigger, because honestly, like the benefits of buying is when you buy, not when you sell, right? Rafa bought his house a couple months ago, and there's already equity there.
Get you, Rafa.
And then once he builds an ADU, there's even more. Yeah, exactly.
And he's building an ADU. You know what? I want to jump into this real quick because I really wanted to dive into this subject. Rafa, do you have anything else? I'm going to jump into SB9.
Yeah, dude, go ahead.
Like whatever, dude. You're the stats
Let's do
guy.
it. Yes.
I'm just here to have fun and hang out. You ask all the tough questions, Jesse.
All right, cool. Well, I'm curious.
You come up with all the stats, Jesse. You got any stats on SB9? I don't think so. Not yet.
No, I don't have any. I didn't write any because I actually wanted to ask you, since you probably know this stuff. So
yeah.
Okay. So tell me about how SB9 has changed. And first off, let everybody know, because we don't have a lot of people in California that are listening to this. And it all goes back to the housing shortage, which I'll let you kind of explain a little bit. Gavin Newsom, that bill passed, right? I think it passed in October.
It did. It passed January of this year.
January. Okay, cool. So what's different now if you're a California resident and the SB9 rule passed? Because I talked to my city and they still don't know shit about it. Like they're like way behind.
They're not going to, yeah.
So break that whole thing down.
So SB9 reminds me a lot of what ADUs were back in 2017 when the ADU legislation passed and allowed for ADUs. Nobody knew about it. Nobody knew how to implement the strategy. And that's kind of what we're seeing this year with SB9, which is totally normal because, again, municipalities aren't even aware of how they're going to implement the strategy. But what SB9 is, Senate Bill 9 and 10, is what that allows you to do. It allows you to subdivide lots and add duplexes to your lots. Or you can subdivide a lot and sell it off, right? Or you can build technically like 3 or 4 ADUs to your lot size. Now they do have some requirements and restrictions. One of them is that you intend to live in the property for the first 3 years. So because of that, I don't see a lot of developers and flippers wanting to come into certain neighborhoods and implement the SB9 strategy. The second one is there's a minimum lot size requirement, which is very low. Like the minimum lot size before subdividing has to be a minimum of 2,400. So after splitting lot sizes, as long as they're 1,200 each, I mean, you can build a duplex. So think about that, like super dense living, which is why I don't see it happening in like suburban neighborhoods. I see it happening more in like LA, more higher denser cities than the outskirts, because we still don't know what that time frame is going to look like. The permitting process. I know of a few contractors that have some applications in LA County and Orange County, but nothing that has been approved yet.
So essentially, like if I live in a city right now, it's a single family residence, and I'm just going to give you my example, my house, 7,000 square foot lot, 7,500, something like that. And I can allocate X amount of square footage to that place and then parcel that off and actually sell that as an actual parcel.
Right.
What if I live in an HOA?
Well, that's another thing, like just like when ADUs first came about, HOAs were giving so much pushback, they didn't want to approve it. And so honestly, if you're within an HOA, good luck for now until HOAs and municipalities catch up onto this and actually create a streamlined process for it, then I can answer your question. But right now, I did HOA management, so I feel a certain way about HOAs.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, they're a pain in the ass. Yeah,
they really are.
Because all you do is you like hang around with the Karens of the building who have nothing to do.
Steph, I have a Karen that drives around, 2 Karens that drive around, and they'll literally, I'll be outside like, I don't mow the lawn. I was going to say mowing the lawn is something cool. I'm just sitting outside, okay? I'm not even mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
And I'll see a lady pull up, like, you guys can see me right here, right? She'll pull up. This is her pulling up in the car, and then she'll be like this. And then she'll just drive right off. And then you know what I'll get in the mail like 3 days later? Your trash can was out front. You have a tree hanging down under 5 feet.
Yeah.
You have a pot plant in the front of your house with no plant in it. And I'm just like, dude, are you freaking serious? And I'll get fined for this shit.
There you go. HOAs are too busy dealing with that kind of shit versus, how do we implement SB9? Well, why don't we analyze and take a look at their application and their requirements? Like they're just busy on other things that I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll get back to you guys on the HOA stuff. Yeah.
Some people just have way too much time on their hands. It's unbelievable.
Way too much. Yeah. But honestly, I'm excited for SB9. I still think that that's going to be the new wave. I think ADUs will, this is just my prediction, eventually the term will fade out because ADUs have been around for years. They used to call them granny flats. They used to call them rumpus rooms. I've sold houses with grandfathered in rumpus rooms, like enclosed patios. It's crazy. It's just the terminology is different. And so right now the sexy term is ADUs. Everybody's calling it that. But eventually what's going to happen is you've got so many residential units, you've got so many multifamily units that are adding ADUs, and eventually we'll have a lot of comps and they have their own addresses. So it's just going to go from ADU to duplex or duplex to triplex, triplex to fourplex. But right now it's just the term that we're using. And eventually SB9, I think, will take over. And the cool thing with SB9 is if you don't want to take on that cost and maybe after subdividing, you decide you want to sell off one parcel, you can do that. That it allows you to just have leverage and more control over your properties, which is what I think is needed here for sure.
Do you know anybody that's actually done that yet? Like that's actually taken the SB9 and actually done something with it?
I don't think so. And to be honest, if there is, I don't know how they did it because you've got to go through the permitting process and that alone is going to take 6 to 8 months. And the bill just passed in January and we're in July. Like I've talked to other contractors just to get a feel for it and see what they've seen. They have some applications in, but nothing has been approved yet. So I don't know, but it's a very powerful strategy.
It's a powerful strategy that nobody's utilizing.
Not right now. We'll see how it plays out.
I remember when it first came out, I was thinking like I'd rather do that than an ADU. And then I remember you told me you're like it's gonna take you like 2 years before this stuff actually happens, and I was like, okay, I'm not doing this.
Yeah,
Because
because that's why I'm still a huge ADU advocate, because regardless, I mean, people have found a streamlined process for it, and there's already a blueprint, and there's a goal of how many ADUs they want to build. Like the city of Long Beach announced they want to build at least another 500 this year. Right. So they have an intention behind that. They haven't given any stats as far as SB9 goes and what the intention is with that. And the fact that you have to live in the property for the first 3 years, you don't need that. You don't need the certificate of occupancy anymore, at least until 2025, right? Unless things change. So again, it's just the ADU side of things have been much more developed and streamlined. The SB9 is such a new thing that I don't know how it's going to play out. It's a great one, but I just still don't know. I don't know. It's too early to say.
Steph, do you know what setbacks are like if I'm building an ADU right now, and I know every city and every municipality has their own kind of different things. Like if I'm putting an ADU together, what's a typical setback from my property and from my, like, say, fence line?
So typically here in LA and Orange County, you're looking at somewhere between 4 to 6 feet on the sides and on the rear, and then 6 feet from the ADU to the main property.
6 feet.
6 feet. So if you have a detached garage, as long as that garage is within 6 feet of the main property, that's one of the requirements. And then 4 to 6 foot setbacks, and then 16 feet for the height. That's typically standard, you know? And so that's another thing to take into consideration. If you have a detached garage, what a lot of people here in LA are doing, because they want to keep integrity of the parking space, they will want to build on top of the garage. But depending on where that power pole is, you may not be able to build as high, or you might be capped out, you know, but typically it's 16 feet. Yeah.
yeah, for me it was 4 feet.
Is it 4 feet? Yeah, and everywhere is different. Like I think in Modesto, you can actually have encroaching lot lines as long as it's the roof, like within like a 3 foot parameter. So you can like literally be boxed right up to the neighbor's fence line as long as the fence is, or the top of the structure is like literally hitting it. So like for me,
Wow.
yeah, it's weird. So in every city's different. I mean, like Rafa just said, what, 3 feet? So
Yeah. Yeah. That's Jurupa Valley or Santa Ana?
4, yeah, Garupa.
Yeah.
4 feet.
Okay. Yeah.
So
4.
Steph,
Here it's 4.
tell me a little bit about these new companies coming out that are basically like, Elon Musk lives like in a boxable type home, or these like ADUs that are basically essentially put up where, and I think we talked about boxable before, right, Ruff, on one of our last, we had, I don't know, I think we had Elvin Johnson on talking about stuff like that. So like, what do you see that's what I see the future of ADUs, like literally just some dude or some truck showing up at your backyard and they already got all the plans put together, and there's just going to be a box and it's just going to unfold into a property and people are just going to do that.
Right.
How are you seeing that now? I'm sure there's a lot of independent people that are doing it now, not just these big companies. Actually, Boxable's pretty new. I sound like a rep for them, by the way. Damn it. But
Yeah, Jesse, you're talking about something completely different. The stuff that we talked about earlier was those prefabbed walls with insulation.
yeah, they're ADUs.
Yeah, he's talking
They're
about
ADUs,
boxable,
though.
which is those companies that they deliver the house, you unbox it, put it together, and then they drill everything together for you. It's two different
they're
things, but there's
ADUs.
still people using them for ADUs. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, my take on it is it's a great strategy depending on your budget. It's a great entry point, or depending on where it's at. I think that boxable type of prefab or manufactured homes are good for certain areas and certain neighborhoods. And if it kind of goes and blends in with the aesthetics of it, it's cool, but there is no value add. You can't expect equity or appreciation on things like that right now, as of now, right? Appraisers won't take that into consideration simply because it's not a stick build. They won't consider it. But would it generate cash flow? Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that that's a potential for it, right? Like, but I'm not a huge fan of it, but I think it's a great concept for sure. And it's affordable. I mean, some of these boxable models start off at like 50K, you know, and if you want to get crazy fancy with it, you know, you can go up to 150, 200K for some of those models. And I've seen them in person, actually. I went to the San Diego tiny house event where I met a few people and I got to see their models, and I was pretty impressed. But because I'm in real estate, I'm like, yeah, an appraiser's not going to look at this. They're just going to laugh at it for now.
So they don't actually consider that like an ADU then? Like if I had them come give permits, all that stuff, that wouldn't be an ADU?
No, it wouldn't be an ADU. It wouldn't have its own address. It's just basically like a manufactured home sitting in the back of your lot, or a container home,
Yeah,
or but technically it would not be a stick build
got
with
it.
its own address. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. Well, I was always under the understanding that if you got that it was basically essentially an ADU. Like you could permit it under an ADU. You got to get permits through the city to do it anyway. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, if there is, maybe in certain municipalities, they might have, because I know with these container homes, some people have gotten pretty creative with it, and some municipalities will allow them to, as long as they go through their motion of inspections and stuff. But you still have to go through the motion as if you would for any new built, right? Yeah.
Jesse, it also depends a lot what the city allows. Like for me, I have to make an exact replica of the front house and the back house. Like I can't do a container home. I can't do like a 2-story home. I can't do a boxable home. I could use the prefab walls because that's just walls that are
Right.
already prefabbed. It's still a stick up, but it's not. It doesn't come in a box or it doesn't come pre-made. It's not like a mobile home or like a container or nothing like that. So you have to look at what the city allows you to do, and then you got to go from there. Like if I were to come in and go, oh, like you remember in the beginning, Stephanie, we were talking about I want to do a container house, 2-story container house, and now it's like
Right.
that dream's gone because I have to build an exact duplicate of the front house, just smaller version of it, and I can't even build more than 1,000 square feet. So now the 3-bedroom concept is gone, and which is dumb because I know state of California allows up to 1,200 feet, right? And the city's saying no, only 1,000 feet. So now it's like you're fighting between two different things, and so it's I don't know, it becomes kind of a big pain in the butt to deal with, but it's part of wanting to
That's
do it.
why who you work with matters, because it's hard to keep up with all these municipalities on what you can and can't build. Like, for example, here in Long Beach, we're also capped out in certain neighborhoods. You can only build up to 800. Even though the state law says you can build up to 1,200, you're dealing with the local laws that say we're saying this. Even though the state law says that, we're saying 1,000. The city of Torrance, California, same thing. They're capped out at 1,000. They'll only let you build 1,000 square foot. In some municipalities, they won't let you do a 2-story. You can only do a one. It's hard to kind of keep track of everything, but if you have a solid team that takes care of all that stuff, then you just kind of rely on them and check in with them, and hey, what can I build here? What does this municipality look like? The minute, like, for example, Burbank didn't even have an ADU application, and Andrew was fighting with the people at the city, like, you guys need to know about this. And they didn't even have an application for it. But if you're well versed and you have the knowledge and you know what you're talking about, you just got to overcome those hurdles. HOAs, I see them adapting it, but they probably will have their own restrictions too, right? Like, yes, you can build one, but it has to look exactly like this property, kind of like yours, similar situation. But they'll still allow it. They have to.
Awesome Steph. So like right now we're kind of diving into the ADU stuff. So what can somebody do right now if they're wanting to get into ADUs? They want to figure stuff out. Like what would be some of the two things to look for in a property, and why they should reach out to you in this space if they're in the Los Angeles, Long Beach area?
So if they're looking at it on a residential side of things, let's say you're looking to buy your first property, I would highly consider you start off with looking at properties that have a detached garage and that have a decent lot size back there, just so you're within the setbacks, within the height requirements. And if it has alley access, even better, because again, you'll cut some time and some costs there. Utility access, making sure that there's quick access for that, things like that. And I think just being mindful of the neighborhood, and the parking, and starting off with the garage conversion may be the easiest way for you to tap into ADUs, right? At a very basic level. Now, for investors in the multifamily space who are possibly considering a 1031 exchange, maybe I can talk to them about investing in opportunity zones. I have my friend Adam, who's a real estate attorney, and I partnered up with him. He has an ADU OZ fund. So he teaches and builds micro communities by implementing the ADU strategy with investors, who have 2 to 4 units, 5 to 10 units, 10 to 20 units. And rather than doing a 1031, maybe if part of your exit strategy is to buy and hold for 10 years, then you want to look at investing in an opportunity zone and implementing the ADU strategy.
So I have a question for you there really quick, because when you do an opportunity zone, you have to put in the same amount of money that you got the property for, right? Does the ADU build count as part of that as well?
Equal or greater, and yes,
Okay.
equal or greater, and you can also add that ADU in there, which is the cool thing.
So you can actually buy a property that's not that bad, that you technically wouldn't be building another $500,000 worth of stuff or build into it, but now you can add an ADU that actually gets you over that hurdle.
Right. Exactly.
That's really cool. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I always tell the investors, if part of your strategy is that, then instead of doing a 1031, invest in an opportunity zone, or invest in the fund. If you want to start at a very basic level, I think minimum is 50K, to invest in that ADUOZ fund, and you get to check out the projects, which, by the way, for the event that we're having August 1st, where Rafa is going to be speaking, and hopefully, Jesse, you can make it, we're going to be checking out some Adams's projects. So earlier in the day, we're going to drive around and go check out 3 or 4 of his current projects that he's working on with some of the investors through that fund, and then go to the event later that day. So that'll be fun.
Awesome. Where's the event at? August 1st?
San Diego. And that's going to be at the Old Tequila Factory. And I did it intentionally because I know I have a lot of people from LA, who could just hop on the train, exit the train station, and literally walk there. So it's walking distance to the train station in Old Town San Diego. And that's going to be August 1st.
What is that event about? Like, can you kind of break that down?
So it's going to be about ADUs, residential and multifamily. I'm doing a little bit of both, and I'm having different people come and speak about different strategies, because even though the headline is ADU meetup, there's all kinds of people that can implement the strategy, and there's all kinds of different people that come to these meetups that you may want to connect with, because Rafa will be talking about STRs, for example. So a lot of the multifamily investors, if they're adding more doors, they may want to look at the STR and MTR strategy, right? Like that's a must. Then we might talk about, we are gonna talk about prop tech, because I'm doing this event in collaboration with Multitasker. It's a company that I met at an event 2-3 years ago when I started tapping into ADUs and niching down into it. And they were a startup company at that time, and now they're like multi-millionaires. It's a multi-million-dollar company, and what they do is they have a pretty streamlined process by using prop tech, VR technology, and Contech, which is construction technology, and solar and construction and financing. So they pretty much streamline the entire process, and they're going to also tackle SB9. And they were one of the ones that I asked at the beginning of the year about SB9, because they started shifting all of their marketing strategy into SB9, and they don't have any projects right now yet, but that's one source that I'll be tapping into as far as SB9 projects go. So they'll be talking about prop tech, Contech. We'll be talking about STRs, opportunity zones, multifamily, residential, construction, a little bit of everything. Good vibes, dope vibes. It's about just connecting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm making a weekend out of it. I'll probably just stay out there the whole weekend, but I am taking the train, so it's going to be fun.
Me too. I have another speaking event Saturday, like that Saturday before I go to San Diego. So I'll probably head out to San Diego for the weekend too, right after that.
Thanks for inviting me, guys. That's cool. I'm just here as the...
We're inviting you now, live. It's not like you're going to show up anyway.
Look at Rafa's face. He don't want me there.
Yeah, right. Because I know you're not going to come.
Rafa's like this.
Yeah, right? Tell him, Rafa.
Stephanie, what are you doing, Stephanie? Gosh darn it, now he knows. You're not gonna come, bro. Quit lying. We already know.
He's not gonna show up. He's like, he flaked like.
And if he does, he's gonna stay in his room the entire weekend. He's gonna show up to the end of the event.
You know what, dude? I'm gonna rent a freaking Airbnb out there and have you guys all there. Okay, I'm gonna rent a fat ass.
Hell yeah, do it.
Jesse, can you take the Amtrak from like Modesto or somewhere over there?
Yeah, but it stops in Bakersfield, and then you got to get on a freaking Greyhound, and then from the Greyhound you get back on in Santa Clarita, and then you take the rest of the route up there. So it's kind of like
that's actually pretty badass. I would do that.
Would you? It's a long drive.
Yeah, but it's like 12 hours.
You're not driving.
12 or 15 hours or something.
Really?
Take the train. Look, the train has Wi-Fi, drinks. You bring your laptop and your nice camera, and then you just like record all the way.
I can do a podcast on the Amtrak, Rafa. Imagine Rafa
or
doing
for
that.
or Jesse's gonna take a nap. You don't see all those grays on his head, dude. The guy needs his daily nap. He's just gonna nap for 9 hours on the way
Dude,
down.
like talk about grays. I have grays too. Just
Steph, you don't
like
got no grays.
Not me. I got a hat.
these are grays, but I mean they look good. They look good on us.
You know what? Rafa's always talking smack about grays, but dude, first off, women love grays. Rafa, okay, right, Steph?
Yes,
See, she just said
right.
yeah. And second off, grays show wisdom, my friend. Grays show
Great. You know what? The grays, that's how he gets all his stats.
I was about to
from
say, the
grays.
more grays, the more stats Jesse's dropping. You probably got
Every
like
time
9
I
new
pull
grays
it-
today, bro.
Every time I pull a gray out, I get a stat. It just automatically comes in my head, dude. It's crazy.
Oh my
funny.
God.
That's great. So, all right, we're getting to the top of the hour here, and I want to start kind of transitioning a little bit. But any final thoughts, Stephanie, about like people that are new that are looking into getting into the space? I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but give them some like ideas or some examples or something that they should look for specifically for ADUs, of course, not buying property. Sorry. So let me clarify it. Like, not if I want to go out and buy property, but if I want to get into the ADU space within my property, what do I look for? Is what I'm asking. Sorry.
Okay, so I can correlate it to buying as well. And because a lot of the systems that I've developed in the ADU space have come from the buy side, right? So what's the first step when you're looking to buy a house? Financing. You got to figure out what type of financing you're going to be using. So my advice to you is if you're looking to tap into ADUs, let's say maybe you currently own a property or you have a duplex or a fourplex and you want to get a feasibility study report, which is basically like a report stating what it is that you can and can't build and what it is that we're working with. That would be step one. Step two is finding out who you're going to be working with as far as financing goes. And that's very important because once you understand the type of financing that you're going to be using, then now we have a number to work with, whether it's 200, 300K. Right now, I think that just to give some rough numbers, you're probably looking at, for a 800 square foot ADU, you're probably looking at somewhere between 250 to 275. And I don't like to say price per square foot, but everybody tends to just want the price per square foot. But it's very difficult, guys, to give a price per square foot estimate because, again, you've got to take into consideration utility access, the trenching, other things, solar panels, things that come into play that it's hard to just gauge it off of a price per square foot. But just hypothetically speaking, you're looking to spend somewhere between 250 to 350 for an ADU, and that's 250,000 to 350,000. You can also go on the high end. I mean, in the luxury space, some of these people are going all out for their ADUs and their pool houses, spending 400 or 500K, right? But just entry level, expect that. So understand you're going to need a lender on your team. And who else will be part of your team? A good GC. And most general contractors, if they have everything in-house, it's better. And by in-house, I mean like their own architect, designer, and even lender. Sometimes they have a lender go-to person, right? That can help you, and that will be your team right there. So developing a team would be my advice to everybody. Source out a team of people that you trust, that you've highly vetted. Go look at their work. Go see how they work. Go see what the culture is like, what these people, what their work looks like, and how they actually collaborate and connect. Like you can tell a lot by just going to a project site and seeing how the workers are communicating with the project manager and how everybody's kind of just working together. Social media is social proof. So that's another great way to vet people, but don't always just go based off that, and if anything, just hit me up. I think I've developed a pretty solid network. And that's what I do all the time, for my clients and for myself is I'm constantly like vetting people through these events. They come through. We're checking out their work. We're trying to figure out how we can source deals together and work together on these projects. So
cool. I appreciate it. Okay. Let's transition here to our segment where we ask our 2 questions, being that this is the Big Break Show. Give us what your big break was. Like what was your big break in your business, life, real estate, investing, whatever it was that got you from old you to new you?
Well, I think there's been a couple throughout the last 10 years because I've been doing this for since 2011, right? And I've had quite a few breakthroughs or break moments. But I want to say my most recent one was probably in 2020 when I decided to branch out and do my own thing and have my own team and niche down into ADUs. That was probably one of my biggest breaks. This year, like I said earlier in the conversation, one of my biggest breaks or growing pains right now is team leadership and scaling a team so that I don't have to be as involved at some point, and I can fully delegate that and transition into multifamily 100% and just working on deals for myself and my VIP clients that I enjoy working with, right? Because that's the main reason why we do what we do as entrepreneurs is, and I think that'll put me in a very great space. So, but I think also like my biggest one was probably going through a divorce. Like that shit was painful, but it just like another Stephanie like grew out of that, you know? And I'm also a single parent. So I just have to be super intentional with my time. So having a kid, believe it or not, like holds you accountable 10x. So having Alex full time, he's taught me patience. He's taught me consistency. He's taught me a lot. My son has been a blessing for sure.
Yeah, definitely, Steph. I think that's you turn into somebody else when you kind of go through those hardships like that. You know, you're
It's no
uncomfortable.
longer about you. And, you know, now even managing a team, I correlated a lot to being a mom because you need a lot of patience when you're trying to build out a team and build out systems and deal with different personalities and different goal settings. And then you take on their goals and now it's like pressure. Now it's no longer about you. You want these people to win and become the best version of themselves because that's a clear reflection of your coaching or your leadership that you're giving, right? But and that's a lot of pressure, but the best thing that I can do as a team leader is what I've understood this year is I have to just focus on me and be the best me. And you know, the people who see that will then just follow it, and if they don't, I don't have any control over that, right? Because not everybody can be as self-motivating, and I totally get that. So
Steph, don't lie. You have patience sometimes, but then you throw some chanclas at your kid when he pisses you off enough, right? As he's running off,
yeah,
you're
it's
just
for
like,
real, seriously. Honestly, I'm blessed. I only have one child, so I think it. You know, how many kids do you have? You have more than
three.
one,
Yeah, I
right?
got three. Yeah, I throw chanclas all over the
Yeah,
place.
three. That would be wild because when he gets together with my nieces and nephews, he's a different Alex. But at home, like just us two, that kid draws. He draws his life away. He's super chill, laid back. But regardless, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you obviously have your pros and cons, right?
Yep.
Being a
Yep.
parent, but I wouldn't change it for a thing. It's been the biggest blessing.
I got boomerang chanclas now. I throw it, hits the kid in the head, and then comes right back for me. I catch it. Freaking amazing. If those of you don't know what chanclas are, it's an old Spanish word for like, what is it, like a Birkenstock?
Yeah,
Our parents did
if
chanclas.
that.
It's not even a Birkenstock. It's like some jacked up made shoe that our uncles made like
Yeah,
50 years ago. Yeah, that's what a
that's
chancla
right.
is. Anyway,
Yeah,
Steph,
I used to get chanclazos all the time for sure.
Just whatever's in reach, a sandal.
Whatever was in reach, honestly. But
I have chancla imprinted on the side of my head right here. If I shave my head from getting nailed so many times by my mom. But Steph,
do you have stats
That's where
on
all
how
those
many
stats came in
chanclazos
from.
you've done?
hang on, guys. This is my stat sheet right now, guys. Look at this. This is how long my stat sheet
I
is.
love it. You would be a great realtor, let me tell you,
Dude, you know what?
because yeah, you know all your stats right off the back. I mean, you would close anybody ASAP.
You know what? I think I could be a fucking fantastic realtor. I'm not even gonna lie about that shit. So anybody out there wanting to
Yeah.
recruit an agent, think about me for a second.
Stop it.
Steph.
Your mind's all over the place.
How about you build out your own team out there? That would be kind of dope. I mean, have you guys considered that? Have you considered just building out a team
I
and
stay in my lane. You know, I stay in my lane. I'm not an agent. I wouldn't have time to do the paperwork. My brain would go nuts. That paperwork shit you guys do is like, that's where the money comes in. That's a lot. That's where
well, you know what?
patience.
I don't do it. I don't do any of that paperwork shit
Oh, you got a
anymore
TC to do it
because
for
I
you?
delegate it.
Yeah.
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 But I was a TC for a couple years, so I understand the paperwork, which is why I'm not as afraid to delegate it. And again, like with confidence and knowledge, like you're just it gets easier at delegating things because you're very sure of what it is that you know.
I got to get that real estate stuff out of my head. That's not for me, and I know it. So, Steph, last segment here, learn and apply something that somebody listened to today. Obviously, us talking about ADUs and stuff that they can literally go out and apply in their daily lives, whatever that is. Can you give us an example of something like that, or something that somebody can go do right now, an actionable step that somebody could take to either make more money or to get another property or an ADU or anything like that?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned earlier, if they're looking to buy their first property, just come in with the mindset in this type of market because we are in such low inventory and rates are so high. You need to come in with an investor mindset right off the gates, you know? And so just coming in with the intention of buying or building. If you guys have any questions, you guys can reach out to me. We can analyze deals together. I also have like a PDF presentation of the pros and cons and things to consider when building, financing options, you know, the difference between the residential side and the multifamily. I actually have two, one for residential and one for multifamily. I can send that your guys' way as well. So, yeah, I mean, aside from what I mentioned earlier, that's a great way to just tap in at a very surface level. Go to local meetups, like get to know the locals in your local neighborhood that are doing this and follow their blueprint, you know, follow what it is that they're doing and understand the process. Like if you even wanted to take it a step further before you reach out to a GC, before you reach out to anyone in the ADU space, go to the city. City and planning are there to help you and tell you what you can and can't do. So go to your local city, schedule an appointment online or go in person and understand the process first. Hear it from their, you know, from their perspective and understand the process. Once you understand the process, maybe even Google your ADU ordinance. You know, if you live in Santa Ana, ADU ordinance in Santa Ana and kind of just briefly read it. If you don't understand it, talk to me, talk to a GC, talk to somebody, your local expert. Like I think now more than ever, these big brokerages, as far as real estate goes, or these big construction companies, will cut it. You know, they're great at what they do. But if you really want to get like top notch service, go with the local expert. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and I also think people that you're talking to necessarily right now don't have that investor mindset, and it doesn't happen overnight. So, like 3 books that I could think about: the Intelligent Investor is one of them, $1 Million Habits is another one, and the 80-20 Principle. Like you just pick up those 3 books, get them on Audible, listen to those, and you'll start kind of understanding a little bit more on the investor side of things. And it doesn't happen overnight.
And
really.
cash flow quadrant is another good one too.
I don't know that one. I haven't read that one yet. But
that book was so hard to get through for me, but I loved it.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe for me because of the real estate background. But you're right. I don't know. That's another good one too. Cash flow quadrant for real estate. For business, I use Traction. Have you heard of Traction?
Yeah.
I love that book.
Yeah. So I kind of follow that business model along with Ray Dalio's principles. That's another legit one too, because the same principles apply no matter what business you're doing, right? Like the whole ADU movement for me has also been a growing pain because there's no other realtor that's doing what I'm doing. So I just implemented what I knew from the past and other systems and transitioned the verbiage, you know, but it's all the same systems.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Well, there it is, folks. Stephanie down in Long Beach. She's come a long way in the last 10 years. She is part of the 13% who's still around in the real estate world.
Thank you for the stats.
There it is, another stat. You know, here, I got another stat for you. If you were starting a restaurant today and you started in real estate, you're more likely to fail in the restaurant and end up being a real estate agent. Only that 13%. That's how hard it is to actually get along. Does that even make sense? Did I say that the right way?
No, you confused me more than what you helped on that one.
Yeah. I feel like I'm just not. Yeah, I'm not part of the stats now. I'm in the restaurant. I didn't get it, but okay.
Never mind. I'm not even going to talk about this anymore. But Steph, where can folks find you? Obviously, I'm not going to do stats anymore, and my hair's turning black now because I just screwed up on that.
Yeah.
So every time I screw up on stats, my hair gets black. Yes.
Yeah. Where can people find me? They can find me on Instagram. That's really where I've built a community, and I don't have the biggest following, but it's a curated following that I've just consistently grown throughout the last 10 years, you know, and it's very ADU specific. I have a lot of ADU community there, real estate community. Every single one of my past clients hits me up and I follow on Instagram. That's part of my checklist. I just follow them on there. So You guys can check me out there. I do have a podcast, just like these guys are killing it. And, I watched one of your videos and I liked what you said about not comparing, but like just kind of giving the example of how FM and AM were back then. And that's kind of what podcasting is now.
Totally.
And I agree 1000% with you. Like podcasting, and a lot of people, especially in real estate, like everybody wants a podcast now, but a lot of people don't understand the intentionality behind it. And I think it gives you credibility in your space. It positions you in your space and in your market, and it shows people a side of you, and so they feel like they get to know you, and putting this out on Instagram, it's almost like just updating your resume on the daily, and when people are ready to make a move, they think about you and they think that they know you. Not to say that they don't, like,
Yeah.
This is really me, right?
Yeah.
I'm not putting up a front, but I by putting myself out there, certain people that gravitate towards your personality type and towards your skill sets, and they just feel comfortable working with you, come to you, which was another reason why I decided to niche down. So to answer your question earlier, Rafa, what has this done for me? It's kind of filtered out everybody else. And now by positioning myself out there as the ADU person, I attract people who just want to work with me, most importantly, and I want to work with them because we share commonality, right?
Yep. Yeah. People like to do business with people they like, know, and trust. And,
Yeah.
I think that's such an important thing in the AM, FM days. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously we have Sirius satellite radio and all that stuff now, but before, back in the day, and you guys probably remember this, driving in the car to school in the morning, you guys hear the morning DJ, like you become accustomed to that person so often. And that's the same thing with our podcast. They drop, people listen to us, we'll go to meetups, like, hey man, I feel like I've known you already for a long time. And it finally dawned on me one day, like, holy shit, like we're marketing ourselves, but we're also talking about what we do. I'm a freaking dork, right? I'm a dorky on here. Rafa keeps me in check all the time with my dorkiness, but a lot of people see it on like my YouTube and stuff, and like they resonate with dorks, or it's just kind of how it works, and it's such a cool time that we're living in right now, you guys. It's
I think
awesome
most people need to get out of their head too, as far as video goes, and I see this a lot, even in our industry. A lot of people don't want to put themselves out in video because they're afraid of how they look, what their hair looks like, if they've got makeup or not, or if they say something. But it's beyond that. It's beyond you and on the camera. It's the consistency of you being there and you putting yourself out there. You will have people gravitate towards you that you end up wanting to work with, right? Like working with Rafa, I don't even consider it, he's my client, but he's like my friend. It never felt like a transaction, right? And that's the goal. Like, that's the only reason why I've probably been in this business as long as I have. Because if I had to attend to clients that, one, do not trust me off the back, I don't even work with them. There's no point. Like, if there's going to be resistance right off the back, let's not waste your time or mine, because I need like your trust and support hands-on, so that you let me do my thing, so that way I can assist you. That's worked out pretty well for me.
awesome. Yeah, I agree 100%. But Steph, we appreciate you for being here. Get out there, make those
I
Instagram
appreciate you
reels.
guys.
Everybody get out there. Thanks. I know it's been a long time coming, and we appreciate you for being here.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in San Diego.
Yep.
Jesse,
I'm gonna take
Rafa's
Amtrak.
gonna be there. Let's see, Amtrak. All right, let me know.
Thanks, Steph.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Later, guys.